And joining me now is Charlamagne the God of The Breakfast Club on Power 105.1. Charlamagne, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me, Joy. How are you?
I'm good. So, I don't know if you were able to hear Kareem. We had a little bit of an audio problem toward the end. But, I want to, first of all, congratulate you on the interview. The interview, people are talking about that last bit of it. That's the part that went viral. But the substance of the interview was really solid. You had very blunt questions for Vice President Biden. They were about substance. They were about what you want to see for the community. Your listeners, I'm sure, give you lots and lots of feedback about what it is that they want from this man. What are people telling you that they want him to do?
Just some really major policy commitments for the Black community, mainly in the form of economic justice, so we can, tip the scales on some of this wealth inequality in America. I do hear a lot of people say, we also want him to have a Black woman running mate, but not just any Black woman running mate, one that's going to actually, get in office and care that Black people benefit from her presence there. We need substance and significance over symbolism. And he's already committed to putting the Black woman on the Supreme Court. So I just want him and the Democratic Party to know that it's time to give back to the Black community in a very tangible way. But I can say that, the major point that I'm hearing about is just, economic justice, some form of economic justice.
And let me play the apology that Joe Biden gave. He got on a call with Black business leaders and apologized for the comment that he made at the end of your show. Let me let you listen to that.
The last thing I want to do, and I shouldn't have been such a wise guy. I shouldn't have been so cavalier in responding to what I thought was, anyway, it was, I don't take it for granted at all. And no one should have to vote for any party based on their race, their religion, their background.
Do you think there's a risk that not just Joe Biden, but the Democratic Party in general just takes for granted that, well, the black people are with us, so we don't really have to give them anything else. They're going to vote for us regardless. Look, they voted for Joe Biden in overwhelming numbers, 6 in 10 Black voters, particularly in southern states. They all voted for Joe Biden. We don't need to offer anything more. Do you worry that that is the attitude that Democrats are taking toward the Black community?
I mean, I know that's the attitude, that's why I don't even care about the words and the lip service, and the apology is cool. But the best apology is actually a Black agenda. They got to make some real policy commitments to Black people. We got to stop acting like the fact that Blacks are overrepresented in America when it comes to welfare, poverty, unemployment, homelessness, drug addiction, crime, coronavirus. Like, that's no accident. Like, the whole function of systemic racism is to marginalize Black people. And as the great Dr. Claude Anderson says in the book Powernomics, white society has an out of sight, out of mind attitude about racism, and they don't like to have any discussions of substance about systemic racism. So when you have Black people who have the nerve, the audacity, the unmitigated gall to act like citizens and demand something of our votes, it's a problem. It's like you got, whites telling us to stay in our place, and you got Black people saying, oh, stop, now is not the time, you're going to get Trump reelected. It has to come to a point where we stop putting the burden on Black voters to show up for Democrats and start putting the burden on Democrats to show up for Black voters.
And what you just said, that is a lot of what I'm hearing of even African Americans saying, no, don't say that. Don't say those things because it might hurt the chances of beating Donald Trump. And this question gets asked to me a lot. And so I'll ask the question to you. What if Joe Biden says, nope, I'm picking Amy Klobuchar. She's my running mate. Then what do you do?
Well, on top of possible Russian interference and voter suppression, Dems have to worry about voter depression. And that's people staying home on election day because they just aren't enthused by the candidate. You can't act like this is the most important election ever, but run a campaign from your basement and, not make some real, policy commitments to the Black community, not listen to some of the demands that the Black community are making. I think, people are sitting around hoping that Trump loses instead of going out there and actually beating him. He has to do something that energizes his campaign, that, brings some actual enthusiasm to his campaign. So those 4.4 million Obama voters who, stayed home in 2016, more than a third of them Black, don't do that this year. You got to make them come out.
The interview was cut short. You could hear the audio of one of the campaign staffers saying, well, we have to end now, that the former vice president has to do another interview. You said you had more questions. What else did you want to ask him? I'm going to let you get your questions out now.
Oh, that's good. I actually have a couple of them right here. I wanted to ask him about reparations because, in his Black agenda to lift every voice, he committed to studying reparations. And, I just wanted to ask him, what does reparations, for black people look like to him, and what is he prepared to do, based on that study? I also wanted to talk to him about his plan for economic recovery, after we get out of this pandemic, and how can we make sure that black communities aren't left behind yet again, like we were in the recovery from the last crisis. And the question also on his black agenda, he talked about decriminalizing marijuana, but not necessarily legalizing it. And I got that question in, but I wanted to know why he just doesn't, take it off the federal drug schedule altogether, and why not just legalize it and tax it, especially when we know that black men are the ones paying the price for it being illegal, and we get locked out of the wealth that's being created by legalizing it. So those are a few of the questions I have for him that I didn't get to.
And those are good questions. Hopefully he will come back on your show, and I would love to book him as well. So maybe, if he comes on here, I'll ask those questions for you as well. And I'm going to give you a final opportunity to speak to the Congress right now. We are seeing in the United States House of Representatives, they're passing bills that are not getting brought up in the Senate. But there has been some criticism from progressives saying they should go for more. That, if the Republicans are going to refuse to act, then Democrats should say, then let's just go for everything that we really want and start negotiating from that position. Do you agree with that, or do you, what is your take on how Democrats are doing in trying to put some of this forward now?
No, I think that's good. I think it's good because, when I'm sitting back at home and, I'm watching, Democrats swing for the fence, especially if they're swinging for the fence on behalf of, the poor and disenfranchised, on behalf of, black people and the marginalized, that makes me say, okay, salute to them. At least they're trying. And at least I know that they're trying, and I know that they're being blocked. So therefore, I know who at least is attempting to fight for me, and I know who is opposing me.
Yeah. Charlamagne the God, thank you very much. It's great to have you on the show. Really appreciate it. I hope you have a great Memorial Day weekend. Please stay safe.
Thank you, Joy.